Fight fans, welcome to the PBC Podcast, brought to you by Premier Boxing Champions with your host, Kenneth Buhari and Michael Rosenthal.
Welcome, everyone, to the PBC Podcast. I'm Kenneth Buhari.
I'm Michael Rosenthal, editor of USA Today's Boxing Junkie.
Thanks, as always, for tuning in for what is our 100th episode. Mike, it's crazy that we've done so many. It doesn't seem like it. Boy, we've been going for a while now. That
seems like a lot of podcasts.
Yeah.
Wow, 100 podcasts. I'll just say that I'm grateful. It's enjoyable to do this with you in particular. We both love talking about boxing anyway, like off the podcast. We do it all the time. It's just a lot of fun, and we hope that the listeners have a similar experience. It's just all good.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's definitely for boxing aficionados. It's been wonderful talking boxing with you, and also just going back and forth. I mean, we don't agree on everything, which has been great, actually, and getting different perspectives and so forth, and even just throughout the week, racking our brains trying to figure out what we want to do for the next podcast or the one after that and so forth. So we'll see. Hopefully the next 100 are just as fun. Hopefully this one is just as good. We've got Keith one-time Thurman in the house. Plus, on our toe-to-toe section, we're going to choose our best fighter in each division. But let's kick things off. Without further ado, the PBC Fight of the Week. This Saturday, April 10th, PBC returns on SHOWTIME Championship Boxing as rising undefeated welterweight star Jaron "Bouts" Ennis takes on former world champion Sergey Lipinets in a 12-round welterweight battle. Action begins on SHOWTIME at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, and we're going to begin here with the essentials.
Okay, here we go. Ennis, 26-0, 24 knockouts. Lipinets, 18-1-2 with 12 knockouts. Obviously, Ennis is 5-0 in his last 5 with 5 KOs. Lipinets, 3-1-1 with 2 KOs. Actually, the last time that Ennis was in the ring was against Chris Van Heerden in December, and that turned out to be a no contest because Van Heerden was cut in the first round and couldn't continue. Lipinets' his last fight was a good fight. Castillo Clayton, majority draw in that fight. That was in October. Ennis has one of the best knockout percentages in boxing, 89%. Lipinets, 67%. This is the category that Lipinets has an advantage. Ennis, 70 rounds fought. Lipinets, 135. Ennis is only 23 years old. Lipinets is 32. Wow. Ennis turned pro in 2016, Lipinets in 2014. They both fight from an orthodox stance. Now we get into Ennis Ennis advantages. Ennis is 5'10", Lipinets 5'7". Huge reach advantage for Ennis, 74-inch reach to 67 for Lipinets. Ennis is a Philly fighter. Lipinets is from Kazakhstan, but he lives in the very neighborhood I grew up in. He lives in Woodland Hills, California. Yeah.
I mean, so many things in Ennis's favor on paper, and many consider this guy the future of the welterweight division. I mean, he's ultra talented. He's well-schooled. He's hardworking, speed, power, you name it. He seemingly has it all, and he's a huge favorite against someone who, by far, Mike, is the toughest opponent of his career. When I say by far, I mean by far. Is Sergey Lipinets being overlooked?
I don't think so. I think we know what he has or what he is. He's a rugged, experienced guy who's going to fight aggressively and make you work for everything that you got. That's who Lipinets is, and I think everybody pretty much understands that. That's why he's a legitimate test for Ennis. I think Bouts is superior to Lipinets in every way except experience, but he has to prove it in the ring. That's what he hasn't done, and that's why this is a test.
Yeah, for sure. Now, if the odds makers are right, how important is it that Ennis not only win, but look good doing it?
Well, I'm stating the obvious that the objective is to win by any means necessary. Boxing, in one sense, is like one big NCAA tournament. You win, you move on, you lose, you go home. That said, the sport is more than that. Perception is important. Ennis is building the reputation of a future pound for pounder, in my opinion, because of the way he's just dominating guys. A close victory over Lipinets would change the way he's perceived to some degree. It would slow his momentum, possibly. And that's the last thing he wants. He wants to keep this going.
Yeah, for sure. Now, assuming he does keep it going, let's say he wins, what does a win do for Ennis?
Well, he's ranked by 3 of the 4 major sanctioning bodies, if I have that right, between number 7 and number 12. A victory over a ranked opponent, which is what Lipinets is, maybe pushes Ennis up, 1 or 2 or 3 slots, maybe as much as 3 slots, something like that, which is that much closer to a title shot. I would say 1 or 2 more wins, and he's in the mix with the big boys. And when I say big boys, I mean the biggest boys in that division.
Yeah, for sure. The elite, the world champions. Now, what about Sergey Lipinets? Say he pulls off the upset. What does that do for his career?
Well, talk about a change of perception. Lipinets held a 140-pound title for about 10 minutes. But I think he's seen as a solid guy who's unlikely to really get over the final hump. It's not really meant to be a criticism. It's just sort of the way he's perceived. The one-sided loss to Mikey Garcia sort of sealed that for me. It sort of showed what his limitations were. But if he can beat a guy like Ennis, it would make you think, well, maybe he's better than I thought he was. Yeah. And of course, he'd take a significant step toward his own title shot. So victory just changes Lipinets' life.
Yeah, a lot on the line Saturday night in the main event, Showtime. Who are you picking?
Well, listen, I don't want to gush about Ennis every single time I talk about him, but I sort of have to. I'm picking Ennis by 8th round knockout. As I said, I think Ennis has all the advantages except for experience, professional experience, and I don't think experience is going to matter really in this fight. Lipinets' style, I think, also is actually good for Ennis. He's going to attack Ennis. He's going to come to him, I think, which is going to lead to his demise. He's just going to eat punch after punch after punch. I think he'd have to hurt Ennis to win, which is possible. Yeah. That's one of the things we need to see from Ennis, but I just don't see it happening. Excuse me. I think Ennis is going to break him down and stop him, and I think he's going to look great doing it.
Well, you mentioned if Lipinets hits Ennis and we want to see what happens. I agree. I mean, the question for me here is, does Ennis get tested? Does his chin get tested? Does his resolve get tested? I don't know. I hope we get some of those answers. I do, however, like Ennis to win by unanimous decision. I expect him to use his length, his speed, his defensive skills, quickness, elusiveness to keep Lipinets at bay and win on points. Now, in the co-feature, we have another excellent welterweight battle. Unbeaten rising star Eimantas Stanionis taking on veteran Thomas Dulorme. Mike, a major leap in competition for Stanionis. Is this too much, too soon?
Yeah, it's sort of a similar leap to Ennis and Lipinets. Yeah. I don't think it's too soon for Stanionis. This is a big step, yes, for the young man, but I don't think it's too big. Dulorme is 1-2-1 in his last 4 and is coming off a clear loss to Jamal James, who's really good. But I still see him as a good fighter. I'm talking about Dulorme. He's a good athletic boxer. He's got some pop in his punches. I just think that Stanionis, at least right now, is better than Dulorme. I just love Stanionis' tight technique, and he's really tough. He's like a machine. He's just a well-oiled machine. He's got power. He stopped his last 4 opponents. Yeah. Like Ennis, though, he has to prove it at a higher level, and that's where Dulorme comes in, I think. It's a good step up for Stanionis, but he's got to go out and win the fight.
Yeah, for sure. And if he does win the fight, what does that victory do for him?
Well, it proves he could win at the next level, which is the objective. I think he takes, like Ennis and Lipinets, Stanionis takes another step toward a title shot. I think Ennis is a little bit more advanced than Stanionis, but Stanionis is right there though, and I think he wins this fight. And I think within 2 or 3 fights, he's probably fighting for a world title.
Okay, but let's say Dulorme wins, which would be another pretty big upset. What would a victory do for him?
I think this is kind of like a must-win for Dulorme if he wants to remain an elite fighter. So victory pumps life back into his career. let's look at it the other way. If he loses, he's 1-3-1 in his last 5 fights. I guess he can remain in a quote unquote opponent, the kind of guy that you beat to get to a stepping stone, the kind of guy you beat to get to the next level. But I wouldn't see him as an elite fighter any longer if he loses this fight. He has to win this fight.
Yeah, and I think it says more about Stanionis than it does Dulorme. If Dulorme comes away with the victory. You sort of alluded to this already, but I'm assuming you like Stanionis in this fight?
Yep. Stanionis is never going to look as spectacular as Ennis. I'm not sure anybody will. I honestly believe that Ennis will be number 1 pound for pound one day.
Oh.
He hasn't proven that yet, so we have to wait and see, but that's what my gut tells me. But anyway, I think the result in this fight is going to be similar to the result in the Ennis Lipinets fight. I think Stanionis is just going to patiently, methodically break down Dulorme, which is what he does. And I also suspect that Stanionis has more dimensions than we've seen so far. Maybe a guy like Dulorme will bring that out in him. I'm thinking we might see more from Stanionis than we've seen in the past. I just think this kid has a lot going for him. The amateur foundation, the ability, tough guy, the power. It's just going to be too much for Dulorme. I'm going to pick Stanionis KO 9.
I like that. I expect this to be a war. I, like you, I believe that Stanionis has a lot in his toolbox that he hasn't shown just yet. I'm not sure if he'll necessarily have to. And I don't think he minds getting in the trenches. I mean, he seems to thrive in those sort of fights. So I like Stanionis to win by 11th round TKO in a fun fight that threatens to steal the show. Now, just a reminder, in our prediction league, I'm 8-1-1. Mike is 7-2-1. The numbers may change this week, but the standings won't, unfortunately. Also, this Showtime triple header, to me, the best card this year, will kick off with the world title bout. Herwin Ancajas defending his IBF World Junior Bantamweight belt against Jonathan Rodriguez. That begins 9 p.m. Eastern time on Showtime.
Philadelphia's welterweight phenom.
Jaron boots Ennis.
Is he the future of boxing's deepest division?
It's not a matter of if, but when. Let's go, we ready. I'm Monday to
Now Ennis looks to prove the hype is real against his toughest opponent yet.
And the counter left.
Jaron Ennis takes on former champion Sergey Lipinets live on Showtime.
It's time for our guest this week. He is the former unified world welterweight champion, one of the biggest and most exciting stars in the sport, and we're looking forward to his return. Keith, one-time Thurman. Keith, first things first, how are you and your family doing?
We're doing great. It's been a little rough with COVID and everything, but we still try to get together once a week if we can. I always see my mother on the weekends. I try to see my father and my siblings sometimes too. So occasionally we still do some get-togethers, but just family. We're not going out and doing too much in the city right now. I live in Florida, so the weather's good, and we enjoy that all year round. But that's the only thing that we've been able to really enjoy all year round is just our weather. But it's nice, man. We got some action coming along here in Florida. Fights are happening. We even had local fights here in Tampa. I didn't attend the fights, but we had one of our young pros on the card having his second professional fight. So we're feeling better here locally when it comes to everything that's going on with the pandemic. It seems like the world is getting back moving.
Yeah, definitely. Now, the last time we had you on the podcast was last November, around the time you decided to cut your hair. And, I wanted to know what made you do it. And was it difficult, knowing that your hair is it's one of your defining characteristics?
It felt awkward, because I know if anybody was to look up Keith Thurman, my long hair, right? I haven't had short hair my whole life. But COVID was just such a rough year, man. Just wanted to shake up the dust have new life experiences. You know, if I can't travel to new countries, I want to have new life experiences. What can I do? And I was like, hey, man, get rid of this hair, you know. I haven't been maintaining it well. I've been doing the same man bun forever. And, you know, at first doing the man bun was like, it was like a cool thing. And then every man has a man bun, you know, and then it's like, you know, it's just nothing special to it. So at the end of the day, I convinced myself that it was no big deal. Just let it go, you know, shave off a few pounds.
Easier to make weight now. So, Keith, you've been out of the ring for a year and a half or something along those lines. Is that a good thing, a bad thing, or is it a combination of both?
Yeah, what it truly is an unfortunate thing. We would have loved to have been back in action sooner. You know, post Pacquiao fight, I did have the hand surgery, but I've been letting people know that it doesn't take this long to recover, you know. So Thurman's not out here recovering this whole time. It's just been unfortunate events with COVID and getting the ball rolling, getting back in the real action-packed fights. And in the welterweight division, I'm looking forward to coming back in the ring this summer. And, you know, and it's definitely something that I've been wanting to do, and I just really look forward to it because I just want to showcase my skill and talent and show everybody that not only am I fully recovered, but I haven't skipped a beat, and then I'm coming back to dominate the welterweight division once again.
Wow.
That leads me to my next question. So you've had an amazing career so far, and then you're hit with some injuries. Can you talk about how much the injuries weighed on you and what kept you pushing forward, not like getting caught in some kind of dark space?
Well, you know, even though I've suffered these injuries, a lot of it has happened when I was at the top of my game. It was actually a lot harder dealing with injuries before anybody knew who Keith Thurman was. You know, I remember there was a year when I first signed with Al Heyman, and I had a fight on an undercard at the MGM Grand, and I fought a tough Mexican, and I busted his nose. He kept walking forward. He was bleeding, and I said, man, I don't want to hit him because he was bleeding so much. Walking into every shot, I almost felt bad for the guy, but I hit him with a punch, and I kind of hurt my hand, and I didn't know what was happening in the ring at that time, but I told myself, hey, man, this guy's going to keep walking into stuff. You don't like the way your hand feels. You need to squeeze the glove and get him out of here. And I got him out by like the 4th or 5th round. And that was an injury that didn't get really talked about in my career because I haven't made it yet. Nobody really knew about Keith Thurman. So when Keith Thurman was gone, nobody knew. And that was rough for me. And I think that is really the reason why I'm able to handle all of my injuries. Wow. Because before anything has ever happened, I had to sit on the bench and I had to wait. And it was actually acupuncture and a whole bunch of homeopathic therapy that got my hand back at that time. And I just went along and fought a few fights, got a little bit of momentum, and then all of a sudden I got my first fight on HBO. And it was just a dream come true. It showed me that really are meant to make it in the game, in the industry, you always stay with it. You know, if you're a songwriter waiting for that break, just keep writing songs. You know what I mean? Like, you just have to keep pushing through and always believe that no matter how dark it gets, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, you know? And I just learned that so early on in my career that I really believe that that's what's helped me get through everything that I've had to face as a professional athlete.
Do you feel like, obviously you want to get back in the ring, but do you feel sort of refreshed that maybe you have an advantage there when you do get back? You haven't had as much wear and tear as some of these other fighters?
No, I think COVID gave everybody a healthy break.
Sure.
But, you know, I'm just ready to get back into action and really just not hold back and hesitate. You know, I felt like there was a little bit of hesitation in the Pacquiao fight, and I don't know if that was due to inactivity or really because of the injury. I do think the injury weighed on me the most in the Pacquiao fight, and I think it's because I just went way too long with that particular injury. When I fought Josecito Lopez with the injury, you know, it only got worse prior to the Pacquiao fight. So I had two performances when I really, you know, I was already recommended before Josecito Lopez to get the surgery, but no fighter wants to hear that they need hand surgery, and I can't trust any doctor, not even some of the best in the world, even though it's fine now. But, you know, prior to, do I get in the ring or do I let this doctor cut my hand open? You know, I definitely wanted to push myself and get in the ring and fight to the best of my ability. And I was very close to doing that. So I think a little bit of it got into my head, and I learned from that in the future. No matter what, you know, injury, no injury, every single fight, you need to have a clear head and a clear game plan, and then just do your best to execute it.
So, have you been training now? What sort of training have you been doing?
I've been doing a little bit of strength training because we're far out from the camp. It's been recommended to do some strength training. I got to do small things for my hands and my wrist going into the future, just to keep everything strong, and really just preventative stuff. You know, I'm finally in my 30s as an athlete, so now, you know, you take a little bit more of a preventative approach, where a lot of the exercises you're doing is to make sure that you can stay doing what you're doing for many more years and not just a few more years.
So we've been talking about injuries. Do you feel you're 100% now? Do you feel like the problems are behind you? And if so, how exciting is that for you?
Really exciting, you know, because it's all about having that focus, you know. And when you have something in your shoulder, in your elbow, in your hand, in your wrist, it's really hard to be clear-headed and fully focused, not just in a training camp, but in the midst of the action as well. So I'm definitely looking forward to just being 100% and just opening up, no holds bars, whatever I want to do, I should be able to accomplish.
Nice.
Fantastic. You mentioned being in your 30s. You're 32, which is hardly old, but you're not a kid anymore. From a physical standpoint, could you do everything that you used to do, say, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago?
Yeah, you know, we're even working on more flexibility, a little bit more range of motion. What a lot of people have always throughout the years, that's that preventative approach, you know, pulling, tearing, ligaments, all this damage that can occur for athletes because we push ourselves to the limit. You know, this is an extraordinary body that we have, and we're very gifted, but when we push ourselves, you know, it's like Formula One, you know, you gotta do the maintenance. You gotta stay right on top of your vehicle, you know, because when you go that hard, something's bound to break, you know, and that's all it comes down to is just really keeping that mindset, having that understanding. I think it's very important for a lot of these young athletes to really jump on board early with all this preventative stretching and strength training that they can bring into their regimen, just so that they have long, healthy careers, because, you know, ultimately that's what we all wish for.
Now, you mentioned earlier a summer return. Is that still the plan? June, July, August, around there?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm ready to get back this summer. I don't want anything later than August, and it'd be ideal if I would be able to step in the ring twice this year. I did the last active year. We did a January, then a summer, and we were able to get 2 in and then have the hand surgery. So if I was capable, I probably would have got back in the ring a lot sooner. And I just want to stay moving and just stay active. So 2 fights a year, especially if the first one's in this summer, would make me very happy.
No, what level fight do you want? Like a transition fight because of the layoff, or something bigger?
I want whatever I need to get to put me in position to fight a world champion. So any legitimate title eliminator, or there's been people wondering if I would fight Ugas, and of course the answer is I would fight Ugas. But hopefully we get a legitimate list of names here soon, and we're able to put a date on the board in the near future.
Obviously, you've been mentioned as a potential opponent for Terrence Crawford. Is that fight still on the table, and what are your thoughts just about that in general?
I don't think it's on the table anymore. I got a whole bunch of respect for Terrence Crawford. Be in the ring with him. I love to be in the ring with any undefeated champion of today's generation, and just any world champion in general. I've seen him throughout his amateur career. He was always one of the guys to watch out for. But I think he's tremendously talented, but I do believe that there are challenges out there in the welterweight division, and me myself, I'm definitely one of them.
Yeah, no doubt about that. If you could pick any of the title holders to face, anyone, who would it be?
Well, until they stripped Pacquiao, it was Pacquiao, So,
Yeah.
Right.
But since you got to go with the flow, and what has happened has happened. I'd say Errol Spence. Errol Spence has unified. He's the unified champion. He has the most credit. He has a great resume. He's fought a lot of my opponents, yet he hasn't fought me yet. And he was definitely on my to-do list right after Pacquiao. If I was to walk away with that victory, I was truly looking forward to having a major clash against Errol Spence. So even though I do not currently hold a world title, I still have him in my sights.
Is that, Errol's like, I'm not going to give Keith Thurman a fight. Do you think he's just doing that sort of to get back at you, and that he will give you the fight? Or do you believe in the back of his mind, he's made up his mind, I'm not going to fight Keith Thurman?
It's really all up to him. I'm not sure how stubborn he really is. He's made a few statements. But at the end of the day, I just find it a little awkward, because I don't care who you are. If I wanted to fight you yesterday, then I probably still want to fight you today. So I just, I don't know where that lackluster of enthusiasm, if you really think you got my number, I'm superior to the fighters you've been fighting, why not, step up the competition and, let's test out that truth and, see how great you really are against Keith one-time Thurman. Sean Porter, Danny Garcia, I beat both, he beat both. He beat Danny very convincingly, but I don't think he did a lot of damage to Danny at the end of the day. I think he just played it safe, almost similar to when he fought Mikey Garcia. He was on the outside. He uses a lot of things to his advantage, which it's all about the W. Do what you got to do. But I believe that if he was to fight me, that it would be not just one of the toughest fights of his career, but one of the most interesting and action-packed fights in the welterweight division.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would agree with that. Now, looking at some of the other welterweight champions, Jamal James has a title, the WBA regular belt. Would that be a fight you'd be interested in?
I'm not a big fan of the WBA with the way that they broke down the titles and the regular title and the super title. But if that is a name that I hear in a few weeks and I got to get back, and if it puts me in position, that one's a weird one, because that one's not a real title eliminator. That's an actual title, right? Mm-hmm. And what I don't like about the WBA is, as regular champion, you have no rights to you have no mandated rights to fight the super champ. Yeah. So even though for a lot of people in their career it's a great title to have, I held it at It's a tremendous title, and we all admire the WBA. But outside of that, you know, I would take it if it presented itself, but after that, I would still be gearing towards the bigger champions.
You brought up Shawn Porter as a common opponent for both you and Spence. Shawn doesn't have a title right now, but you guys had an incredible fight back in 2016. What are your thoughts on a rematch with him?
We got great history, you know. We really very well. You know, we have this friendship rival. It's a lot of fun, you know. I don't mind giving him an opportunity to step back in the ring and try to redeem himself, you know. So I see a grudge match with him, a grudge match with Danny. Those are all on the table.
We've discussed all these opponents. What's it like to see people on social media commenting on what you're going to do next when it's not based like in reality at all? As a fighter, what are your feelings about that?
Sometimes it's amusing. I heard Thurman fighting Devin Alexander or Andre Berto, and that was an interesting one. And I'm like, why am I fighting them two when them two should be fighting each other? That's a good match. I'm like,
good
Berto,
point.
Yeah.
You know, so that why would I take away a good match? You know. And, you know, I grew up with Berto, man. I got so much love and respect for him. You know, throughout my career, I always thought that I was going to have a clash with Berto to get to the top. So, but, you know, we've definitely had many clashes in the gym, growing up sparring each other. So I know him very well. But I literally grew up thinking that you can't become champion of the world if you don't step in the ring with Andre Berto. He had his ups and downs in his career, and some of his down movement was when I was moving up, and all of a sudden I made a position to where I was highly ranked, and I never had to see Andre Berto. So that just ended up being what it was. I've seen Devin Alexander several times throughout his career. He's had his ups and downs as well, talented individual. But I just don't think that those are really the type of fights for me, especially when it just sounds like a great matchup in itself, right? Alexander Berto.
Right.
So,
Right. Keith, you're a student of the game. What are your thoughts on the new wave of welterweights? Guys like Jaron Ennis and Virgil Ortiz, Imanis Stanionis, Jesus Ramos, guys like that. Do any of them stand out to you?
I think I've gotten to see a little bit of Ortiz. People like his pop, his speed and power that he brings into the. Besides that, I haven't seen too many of the other young guys coming up, but, you know, tremendously talented. But they've still yet to get that shot to prove themselves. I know they're waiting, and then they all feel ready. But it's going to be interesting, man. You know, I mean, I love boxing. I love the hustle and bustle, and just seeing what manifests in the future. Let's see what happens with these kids. I'm not sure what level they're at right now, how many of them are already at the 10-round level and knocking on the door of that championship level. But I know what that's like. And, you know, I look forward to seeing some of that young competition, because we know we are in we call it generational shift, right? Yeah. Pacquiao's final leg, no matter how long he wants to stretch it, we all know it's still the last leg, right? And Floyd's really in his retirement exhibition zone, you know, doing what he's doing throughout his career. So the old names are really done and out, and we have the PBC generation and the Terrence Crawford, and you know, even Timothy Bradley's done. So many fighters. And now we just got to wait for the new guys. You know, we got to wait for these new guys and see who they are, which one's the biggest threat, how devastating they truly are. I think they're talented, but nobody's stood out in a way to where it's like, oh, man, we're in trouble, you know.
Nick, you've been in the game for a minute now. How is boxing different now for you compared to when you were coming up?
Well, really, it's the whole social media game, Ryan, I think Ryan Garcia is a great example of that. He loves a six-pack portfolio, and he loves hitting up the gram. He loves entertaining his fans, doing flashy things on the mitts, on the bag, doing body shots against big guys, just a lot of playful things. And he's very talented, but he's doing a lot of content for the fans. He's got a lot of followers. And it's great. That's really, I think a lot of young fighters can really take from his example, unless if you're like me and it's not in your blood to pump out that kind of content that much, if you don't live on the gram. But at the end of the day, a lot of people try to get me to do it more because they try to say it's not for you, Keith. It's for the fans. It's for people that are waiting for your content, always looking forward to your content. We as human beings, it's all about that interaction. No one's trying to live all by themselves in a cave alone with no entertainment. And regardless, even though there's a lot of haters out there on the gram, all the up and coming fighters, don't focus on the haters. Do what you do for the fans. Do what you do for the people that love you, and those who hate you, let them motivate you. And just keep it moving. Don't get all caught up into every little thing that gets typed up about you, said about you. And if you had a bad performance and you get people saying bad things about you, get in the gym, get your act right, and then come back and prove the world wrong. Show them, like Muhammad Ali said, I'm going to show you how great I am. You perform, everyone's going to judge you based off your performance. That performance is based off of your training camp. Do what you got to do to be great. That's what I'm working on right now, is doing what I need to do to be great in the welterweight division one more time.
Keith, in closing, I think you led perfectly to this question. With all you've already accomplished, do you feel you need to prove anything to anyone anymore?
Well, it's not that I need to prove anything to anyone, but it'd be nice to show them that, because we've seen it throughout the history of boxing. Real champions get knocked down, they get back up and get in the fight. Real champions lose their world title, get up and get it right back. And that's what I want to prove. I want to prove that that's the kind of champion Keith Thurman is. You can take the belt away, it's not going to be gone for long.
Well, we cannot wait to see you back in the ring, Keith. I think the boxing world is awaiting your return. Thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to us. And again, we look forward to seeing you throwing some leather.
Yes, to do it myself. You guys take care, and thanks for having me.
Saturday, May 1st. Don't miss the return of former heavyweight champion Andy Ruiz as he takes on rugged veteran Chris Arreola.
You have got to be kidding me!
Plus a stacked card of Mexican firepower. Featuring Omar Figueroa versus Abel Ramos.
Oh my goodness!
Sebastian Fedora versus Jorge Cota.
What a fight!
And Jesus Ramos versus Javier Molina.
And it's over!
Buy now on foxsports.com/PPV and watch it on any screen you want.
All right, it's time for Mike and I to go toe-to-toe, and this week we're going to reveal our choices for the best fighter in each division. We'll start with strawweight. Mike, go ahead.
Okay, we were talking about this off the podcast. The smallest guys actually was the hardest to pick a guy because, let's face it, that most of these guys are performing overseas, far away from where we are, and but we did our research and we came up with our choices. And at strawweight, I think it has to be knockout CP Freshmart, whose real name is, I'm going to give this a try, Tamanoon Naantrong. as best as I could pronounce it. The Thai fighter has held a major strawweight title since 2016. He's beaten several of the other top strawweights. He's undefeated. He's recognized by most outlets as the top guy. So I'm going to go with CP Freshmart.
Yeah, I'm going with CP Freshmart as well. He holds the world title. Admittedly, I don't know much about the division, but it seems he's pretty clearly that he's the top guy in this one for the reasons that you just mentioned. Let's go to 108 pounds, also known as junior flyweight. Mike, who do you like?
This one actually might have been like the hardest one to pick one single guy. I think it comes down to Japanese fighters Kenshiro Tiraji. Some people just call him Kenshiro. Or Hiroto Kyoguchi, both of whom are title holders. They're both at similar stages of their careers. They both have some power, but not a lot of punching power. I lean toward Kyoguchi, I guess. He seems to have a slightly better resume from what I could tell. He beat Heike Butler, for example, and Butler's pretty highly ranked. But it's really a push. I think it's either one of these guys.
Yeah, I went with Kyoguchi because I like to win over Butler, who I have a great deal of respect for. Is one of the best fighters from South Africa in modern times. Kyoguchi holds the WBA strap, and hopefully we see him tested this year in some unifications and get a real answer to that. All right, let's move on to the flyweight division, 112 pounds. Mike, who do you like there?
So already it got a little bit more interesting to me because I'm a little bit more familiar. This for me is Julio Cesar Martinez, who I think is just an absolute little beast. He's a good boxer, but it's his power that really stands out to me. He's got heavy hands. He's just a really good little fighter. I think that he might be a legitimate threat to the big names among the little guys, and I'm talking about like Estrada, Chocolatito, and those guys.
Yeah, I like that pick because I'm a big fan of Martinez. However, to me, it's no question the IBF champion Morutu Mtalani. It's been so good for so long. 38 years old. He hasn't lost in 13 years. You got to wonder how long he can keep going. But he's got a tough test in Sonny Edwards on April 30th. But he's my guy. All right, on to 115 super flyweight. Who you got?
Also a tough one because of how close the recent Estrada Chocolatito fight was. I think they're essentially equals, both just superb all-around fighters, probably future Hall of Famers. I'm going to go with Estrada because he won the fight. He's a little younger. Essentially, that's a push. But we can't sleep on Sirsaket Rungvisai. I think I got this right. He's 3-1 against Estrada and Gonzalez. And Kazuto Ioka also is really good. So that's actually a strong top end of that division.
Yeah, very, 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 very strong division. I guess you could say it depends on who you thought won the Estrada Chocolatito rematch. I thought Chocolatito barely won. Look, it could have gone either way. However, when I look at them and I look at how they fared against a great common opponent in Sor Rungvisai, I got to go with Estrada as well. I mean, he fought pretty much on even terms with Gonzalez. The judges thought he won, and then, he beat Rungvisai in the rematch, so he's my guy. All right, let's go to bantamweight, 118 pounds. I suspect you and I agree here.
I think this might have been the single easiest division.
One of them, for sure.
Yeah, one of them. Naoya Inoue. He's another guy. I think this guy just doesn't have a weakness. He can do it all offensively, and he's a very, very good defensive fighter. And if there was any doubt and he's got crazy power. And if there was any doubt at all about his toughness, I think fighting through a broken face to beat Nonito Donaire sort of resolved that doubt. He's arguably the best fighter in the world.
Yeah, without question. I mean, I think he's completely runs this division. So I've got nothing else to add to what you just said. We'll go to 122 pounds, a stacked division, lots of players. Who's your number one?
I landed on Stephen Fulton. He just dominated a good fighter in Angelo Leo in his last fight. He doesn't have a ton of power, I guess, but that just doesn't matter when you have his kind of ability, his natural gifts. And I think he's just getting started. He's just sort of hitting his stride. I like guys like Luis Neri and Akhmadaliev is really good, but I lean toward Fulton.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm going with Fulton here too. I was so blown away by that win against Angelo Leo, and not just that he won, but how he won. I mean, we knew Fulton was an elite boxer, but he beat Leo at his own game, like on the inside, in the trenches, and he showed that he was a complete fighter. So, I mean, look, you mentioned Akhmadaliev, Luis Neri, Brandon Figueroa, Danny Roman, Rais Salim. I mean, things could change quickly, but for now, Fulton's my guy. Now, what about featherweight?
The veteran, Gary Russell Jr.
Yeah, this was fairly
the speed, the ability, the experience. I really think this guy is underappreciated in terms of how good he is. Although that might be the case in part because he just hasn't fought that often. I'll add. So to me, this was sort of an obvious choice. But I want to add this though. Two of his rivals in that division, Leo Santa Cruz and Emmanuel Navarrete, I think they have the high punch volume style that could actually give Russell a little bit of trouble. So I hope those fights happen.
Yeah, those are really, really good fights. I hope they happen as well. However, as far as who's the best, it's gotta be Gary Russell. I mean, I think he's the longest reigning champion in boxing. So no brainer here. Now let's go to 130 pounds, super featherweight. Who you got?
I think you have to go with Gervonta Davis if he's still a 130 pounder. I'm not real clear on where he's landing right now. I think you can go either way, 130, 135, or both. Show me a weakness in Davis. It doesn't exist. As long as he keeps his head straight, he doesn't have a weakness. He has some competition though. Oscar Valdez made a big statement against Miguel Burchell, and I thought Jamel Herring looked absolutely terrific this past weekend against Carl Frampton. He retired Frampton, and one guy you definitely can't sleep on is Chris Colbert. He's coming. Sure. He's coming hard. But right now, I think it's Davis.
Yeah, I think it's Davis as well. As you mentioned, pretty competitive division. But that win over Leo Santa Cruz, his win over Jose Pedraza, also very impressive. Couple others against some former world champions. Let's go on to lightweight, 135 pounds. Lots of chatter about this division the past few months, but I think there's a clear number one, Mike.
Well, I got to go with Teofimo Lopez.
Oh, yeah.
I don't care what the sanctioning bodies do. I almost never care about what they do or what they say. He's the undisputed champ at 135 pounds after beating Vasily Lomachenko. Right now, that's the reality. He's in a tough division, though. Now we have to see him fight against the likes of Davis, Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia, those guys, to really know who's going to end up being the king long term. Lopez is on top now, but I think the division is unsettled.
Yeah, for sure. And I hope he sticks around long enough for us to get some answers. But no question, he's the number one guy. Not just the win over Teofimo Lopez, but this guy beat Hidori Nakatani. That was a great win. Knocked out Richard Comey. That was a great win. So he's certainly proven himself. It was no fluke, whatever he accomplished against Lomachenko. Let's go to super lightweight, 140 pounds. Who's the man there?
Well, this is a case where we're going to find out who's number one in the division because Josh Taylor and Jose Ramirez have a date on May 22nd. Right. I think it's a 50-50 matchup, but I think Taylor wins. He's an excellent boxer and just tough as nails. Maybe that's a little bit underappreciated. Again, I would call it a toss-up fight, but Ramirez's performance against Victor Postol put a little doubt in my mind about him. But I think he's really, really good. And again, 50-50 fight. That fight's going to be really fun to watch. And that'll settle who's the top guy.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely will settle it. I'm not going to make my prediction just yet. I'll tell you who I think is the best now. And I'm going to give the edge to Josh Taylor. I think his win over Reach's Prograis trumps the other wins that Ramirez has. And Ramirez does have some really good wins, but Taylor showed it all against Prograis, the skill, the will, ability to fight on the inside, everything. I'm also looking forward to the undisputed match, and I think that fight clearly determines who's number one. All right, let's get to 147 pounds, welterweight. Who you got?
Yeah, it's getting better and better. This was a tough one for an unusual reason. I think Terrence Crawford is better than Errol Spence pound for pound. But I rank Spence higher at 147 pounds because he has a stronger resume at that weight. Now, when I say I think Crawford is better pound for pound, it's just by an absolute whisker. But there's no question about the resume at 147. Spence clearly has a better resume. So for me, I'm going to go with Spence for the purposes of this, what we're doing here.
Yeah, I like Errol Spence as well. Both actually, pound for pound and at welterweight. I just feel like the people he's beaten would are pretty much better than anyone over on Terrence Crawford's resume. There's several people he's beaten that would beat everyone on Terrence Crawford's resume, pound for pound at any weight, what have you. And therefore, that's why I would have him higher both. But that's not a knock on Terrence Crawford, who's second in the division as far as I am concerned. But Spence is the king. 2 world titles, the wins over Porter, Mikey Garcia, going to the UK years ago and beating Kell Brook, all very, very impressive. Let's go to 154. Who's the man?
Well, for me, it couldn't be more obvious. I'm thinking back to the Naoya Inoue being the most obvious. This one's just as obvious. Jermell Charlo. I like Brian Castano a lot, especially after his victory over Teixeira, which was very, very impressive. I think Tim Tszyu and Israel Madrimov have a lot of potential, but Charlo's the man. He can box, he can punch, and he fights with this kind of fire that I just absolutely love. He's just got this fire burning underneath him, and you could just see it come out in the ring. Yeah. It's really something to watch. And he's absolutely on top of his game right now. He's his absolute peak. He's also arguably a top 2 or 3 guys in the world pound for pound, I think.
Yeah, one of the best, and just he's gonna be very, very tough to beat. But I got to tell you though, if he fights Brian Castano, that's a tough fight. I mean, I don't know what'll happen. I know the fans win, that's for sure. But that's the only winner I'm willing to make, the only pick I'm willing to make right now. But for as it stands right now at 154, no question, Jermell Charlo with the bullet. I mean, he's still on the rise. It seems like. Now, what about at 160?
It's all in the family. Jermell Charlo. Jermell has it all. He's undefeated. I think he's a special fighter. That said, I really would love to see him in the ring with Gennady Golovkin or Demetrius Andrade. I just want to see him. And I think he beats both of those guys. I just hope those fights happen. If he does fight those guys, or even one of those guys, and wins that fight, I mean, his star becomes even brighter. Special guy, and I love watching him fight.
Yeah, great action fighter, great skills, great will, just like his brother. And I really want to see those fights as well. The unifications versus Gennady Golovkin or Demetrius Andrade. I mean, it's three elite guys in one division. They haven't fought each other yet, so we can only hope. Now, 168 super middleweight division. Who's your number one?
Well, it's pretty easy too. Canelo Alvarez. I feel like I'm stating the obvious, but he can do it all. Which he's proven over and over and over again in his remarkable career. That doesn't necessarily mean he beats David Benavidez or Caleb Plant. I think Benavidez would actually have a pretty decent chance at an upset, but you have to give it to Canelo right now. He's just so accomplished and so good.
Yeah, I went with Andre Ward. No, I agree with you. Canelo Alvarez. Canelo Alvarez. At the moment, it's a stacked division. Though, would love to see him against Benavidez and Caleb Plant, but he stands alone on that mountain for now. What about light heavyweight, 175 pounds?
This was really tough for me. Oh, yeah. I'm just a huge fan of Artur Beterbiev, but I know that Dmitry Bivol is also really, really good. I actually think Bivol might be a better all-around fighter. I just think Beterbiev's physical attributes, his strength, his power, to go with what I think is underappreciated boxing ability, I think that makes him the best 170 by a whisker. So I'm gonna go with Beterbiev.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Beterbiev as well until Bivol or Canelo fights him. Then he's out because they will beat him. I do believe that, but I think without question, his win over Alexander Govzik, Callum Johnson, Beterbiev is number one at 175. What about at cruiserweight?
I think it's Maris Briedis. If I hope I pronounced his name correctly. I mean, look at the guy's resume. He was just edged by Oleksandr Usyk, who's supposed to be one of the best cruiserweights of all time, and he's beaten a series of other top guys, including Uniel Dorticos, to win the World Boxing Super Series. And we know how hard it is to win one of those tournaments because you're fighting one elite guy after the other to get to the final, and he won that tournament. So I think it's pretty clearly Briedis.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like Briedis here as much as I like Ilunga Makabu. He ekes it out. However, I'd like to see those two square off, but for now, I think Bridas is the top guy. What about Bridgerweight? I'm kidding.
Yeah, what's that? Honestly, I don't even know. I'm and off the top of my head, I'm not even sure who the top guys are. I forgot. I read it a while back. I don't even know.
I have no idea. I guess I'm not there yet. Unless the boxing world forces me.
I'm secretly hoping.
Take a lot.
Right. I'm secretly hoping that it just goes away somehow, but I guess that's not going to happen.
Well, let's see. We got. Let's start praying now. Maybe fasting too. We might get there. All right, heavyweight. Who's your number one?
Okay, it's pretty easy for me. Tyson Fury. He has the dominating wins over Klitschko and Wilder. I don't think anyone can touch him in terms of, at least among the top guys, in terms of boxing ability. And he just moves remarkably well for a guy who's 6'9". I keep thinking that if he were born in the United States, he'd be like a really good power forward in the NBA. I don't think Joshua is as good a boxer as Fury, and I still question his mental toughness. After the first fight with Andy Ruiz Jr., and I think there's a pretty significant drop off after Joshua in the division right now. So I think to me it's pretty obviously Tyson Fury until somebody takes him down.
Possibly. I mean, I wouldn't say significant. I still think Deontay Wilder. I think I still look at it like the holy trinity: Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury, and Anthony Joshua. I mean, a right hand from Deontay Wilder could knock out any of the other two, but no question.
True.
The man is Tyson Fury as it stands right now, because he holds the two best wins in the division, and that's the win over Wilder and also over Vladimir Klitschko. I rate his win significantly higher than I rate Anthony Joshua's win over Vladimir Klitschko. Somebody say, well, Joshua knocked Klitschko out, but Klitschko is coming off a loss. Actually, he wasn't coming off anything because he hadn't fought in almost 2 years. So I like Fury's win a lot better.
Yeah, me too. Fury's win over Klitschko was incredible. I mean, it wasn't like an exciting fight to watch, but as I'm watching that fight, I'm thinking I couldn't believe what I was watching because he just absolutely tied him up. He couldn't do anything, Klitschko. I just wanted to follow up on what I said, leaving Wilder out. I'm basing that on his last fight. If Wilder comes back and knocks out Andy Ruiz Jr. or whoever he fights next, maybe he's back into the picture. But he's sort of like, what have you done for me lately kind of thing. Yeah. That's why I think it's Fury and then Joshua and then a little bit of a gap.
Yeah, I hear you, man. No question that we agree Fury is the number one guy.
Philadelphia's welterweight phenom.
Jaron boots Ennis.
Is he the future of boxing's deepest division?
It's not a matter of if, but when. Let's go, we ready. I run it all, money to pile.
Now Ennis looks to prove the hype is real against his toughest opponent yet.
And the counter left.
Jaron Ennis takes on former champion Sergey Lipinets live on Showtime.
That's going to do it for this week's show. We want to thank Keith Thurman for joining us. Don't forget, guys, this Saturday night, PBC returns to Showtime as Jaron Boots Ennis takes on Sergey Lipinets in what the Brits would say promises to be a cracker. Be sure to like and subscribe to the PBC podcast wherever you found us, and be sure to check back in next week for more boxing talk, more interviews right here on the PBC podcast.